Today we're going to review the collection of Performance Shading Systems fabrics. We're going to go over the standard fabric binder and give you a little bit of an education on roll shade fabrics in general. So to start, I do want to address a couple things. First and foremost, there are two things that create the biggest gripes or complaints with regards to roll shades and roll shade fabrics. Number one is gaps. So we've covered this in the other modules to make sure that your client is aware of the gap that is going to reside on both sides between the end of the bracket or the shade system itself and the fabric. Make sure you cover that if you have a client who has never bought roll shades before, especially motorized, because typically the gap on a motorized system is a little bit larger than it is on a manually operated system. The second complaint is seams. The reason why I bring that up today is because we're addressing fabrics. It's very important that you know that ahead of time so that we can discuss that as we go through this book. It's going to be very important. A seam is created when the fabric width, as it comes off the roll, is not as wide as the shade width or the window width. What happens in that case is the fabric has to be tipped on its side and run sideways. We call it railroaded or railroading of the fabric. Many times then, if it's railroaded, what happens is there's going to be a seam where the two fabrics that have been railroaded are actually bonded together. So seams are a big problem. We want to avoid that. That's why we'll cover that here. We also want to avoid railroading fabrics because fabrics, when railroaded, don't behave as well. This is a normal orientation for a roll shade fabric. It comes off of the mill, or out of the mill rather, off the loom in this orientation. It's used to rolling up like this. If you tip it on its side, it wants to roll up this way. So in the process of that, it tends to cup, it tends to curl, it tends to be wavy. It just does not hang as well, as nicely. So we'll go through that, but I just want to make sure I point out those three things. So gaps, railroaded fabrics, obviously, and seams that a lot of times go along with having a railroaded fabric. Okay, so we'll get started. This book is quite simple. It's not a big book. Reason why we want to keep it simple. There are other collections and other fabrics beyond this, but this really covers about 80%. And it's really more of a functional collection in terms of functional fabrics. Not so many decorative fabrics in here, more functional fabrics. What's really important is that you go through the fabric guide that's in the front of your book. This fabric guide is a very important tool. It will list all of the fabrics alphabetically by vendor or by manufacturer. And then it will also tell you if it's a screen fabric, a light filtering fabric, or a blackout fabric. And we'll go through that in this training as well. It'll give you an idea in terms of price group, so you can have an idea in terms of where it's going to fall highest to lowest in price. If you have a budget conscious customer or client, the lower the letter, A, B, C, or D. Obviously, something higher in the E, F, and G is going to be more expensive. This also provides the roll width. So this is really crucial when it comes to railroading fabrics. If the shade width happens to be wider than the fabric or roll width, what you want to do is one of two things. Do a coupled system, okay, which means we'd have multiple panels on one motor system, which would help to avoid railroading the fabric, or go to a fabric that is wider or can be approved or is approved for railroading, which is what this column is here. This column will tell you whether or not it's approved for railroading, and if it is approved for railroading, how tall it's approved for. A lot of times, even though it's approved for railroading, we still don't want to incorporate a seam because seams pucker, and that creates other problems. Okay, so very important to pay attention to this. First, we'll get into the solar screen fabrics. This is our most common solar screen fabric, reason being, from a pricing standpoint, it's very reasonably priced. It's very good quality fabric, and this is something that gives just a standard, 6, 7, actually 8 colors. This is available in a 1%, 3%, 5%. And what that means is the openness of the weave. So a 1% is going to be a very tight weave. This one here I would not categorize as a privacy, but it is going to be, for some, perhaps considered a privacy. The weave is quite tight. A 3%, not as tight. You can still see through it pretty much as the shade you see here. Very similar to this. This is a 5. And then you have a 5%, which is going to give you really the best combination of view, UV protection, glare reduction, etc., etc. And when the 3 and the 5 come into play, you're kind of splitting hairs. There isn't a big difference between the two. But if somebody wants maximum glare protection and UV protection while still having the best view, 3 is the way to go. If the view is most important, then certainly go with the 5, and the 5 is the most popular. Okay? All right, so moving on. We're going to move on to the next level of screen product, and that is the Nordic Screen Basket Weave. This is a railroadable screen fabric. This is approved for railroading. The Vertilux is not. This also gives you a larger palette of colors. So this is also a tighter weave in the 1%. It is truly a room darkening or a privacy screen fabric. It is woven tighter than the other Solar Screen 3000. This is a little bit more expensive. Reasons being, it's thicker. It does work better for railroaded applications. Gives you a larger color palette. So overall, it is just a better performing screen for larger shade systems. This is a 3% and a 5% as well, so you have the 1, 3, and 5 available in the Nordic Screen Basket Weave. This is a 1 and 3% in a twill. It's just a little bit different look. It's just woven a little bit differently. As you can see, the color range isn't quite as good, a little bit more limited, just another option. Now we're going to get into the light filtering fabrics. A light filtering fabric is going to let through a soft light. It's going to give you privacy day and night. A screen fabric that you can see through during the day, this is very important, will be the exact opposite at night. If you can see through this during the day, people will be able to see in at night when your lights are on. So if nighttime privacy is important, stay away from this. Make sure you go to something of this nature. This is a South Beach light filtering. This is going to let through a soft light through the fabric, so you're not going to darken the room necessarily, but you will lose the views while the shade is down. It's the only way to obtain nighttime privacy, but it will keep your natural light. Same with the Palm Beach light filtering, still retains your natural light, but again, daytime privacy, nighttime privacy, no view through this day or night. Then we'll move on to the blackouts. So on the blackouts, we have a number of different collections. Reason being, it just gives you a larger color palette to choose from. They all have a little bit of a different look. And again, the backside color on the blackouts is very important because you may want to make sure that your client and you both understand what the exterior color is going to be, because it will vary depending on the blackout you choose. This one happens to be an off-white backed blackout. If we go to the 3 PES here, this is actually same color both sides. You have to be careful. This is actually a dark backside, much like the dark interior. The backside color is similar, so be careful with that, especially if you install the shades, they pull up to the house and see that the exterior color of the shades doesn't necessarily match the exterior of the house. That would be a problem. This is a fire retardant fabric. This is very common for condo projects, multi-dwelling projects, hospitality projects, things of that nature. Again, this is an off-white, even more of a white backing than it is an off-white. It's more of a white-white. Again, good color range here. This is a very good fabric. Not approved for railroading, however. The 3 PES is approved for railroading. It is very stable in that particular instance. We also have a Screen 3000 blackout. So if somebody wants to match the screens in terms of the look and the color, there are 3 colors, unfortunately only 3, available in this, but it does essentially utilize a Solar Screen 3000 on the front with a blackout lamination on the back that's white. Okay, no matter which color you go with here, it's white. And then lastly, we have 2 more. Our Scala blackout, just again another range of colors here, a little bit different. And then lastly, we have our Midnight blackout, which is pretty much your standard blackout, nothing fancy, but this is, again, a railroadable blackout fabric. Performs quite well when railroaded, unlike most. So that pretty much covers the standard fabric offerings in this binder. If you need something above and beyond what we have in here that's more on the decorative side, do let us know. We also have those collections. But again, this is the standard binder that we provide, obviously free of charge, to anybody who wants one. Thank you.